Hello, Sturgeon friends. We are learning together, and in this particular webcast, we're going to take a look at some more digital learning, but with a focus on asynchronous digital learning. And we'll take a look at some of the strategies and applications that we can use to do that. My name is Nikki Woodford. I'm the coordinator of instructional assistive technology. You can find me on Twitter there, but certainly you can reach out to me over email as well. And I'm always available to help teachers with respect to how do we do really good teaching and really good learning with technology in our classroom. Um, in a previous webcast, I talked some about synchronous digital learning, and so how when there's a teacher and students in the same space in the classroom, that would be an example of synchronous learning. It's learning that's happening at the same time. And so when you move that to a digital environment, again, it's just connecting at the same time. And there is a tool. We talked about Google Meet and how you can use Google Meet to do that. In this particular episode or this particular webcast, I'm going to talk about asynchronous learning and some of the advantages and considerations that we need to be mindful of around it. Asynchronous learning, well, if we know what synchronous is, happens at the same time, then asynchronous doesn't. Okay. And so a teacher can provide a lesson or content or learning, or they can provide something, but the student then receives it at a different time, or they'll look at it at a different time, they'll process it at a different time, they'll look at it and complete the task. And so it just, there's the timing is different. And there's some considerations around this. It does mean that the teacher just really needs to be mindful of um, that everything needs to be thought quite through, because you don't have the students in front of you with the questioning look on their face or the confusing face. You can't read their facial expressions, you can't see them, and so you can't look for their cues. And so you really do have to kind of think through and plan accordingly. Like, am I going to lose them here? Or how do I simplify this for them? Am I providing my content in a really clear, thought out way? So there is perhaps some precision involved in this. And then, because again, the kids aren't right in front of you, you aren't connecting in the same time, then you do have to be mindful of how then am I going to connect with my kids? How am I going to know if they understand? How am I going to get feedback from them? Um, how am I going to assess them? And so it's just, again, some mindfulness around, okay, so if I can't see them, I can't use those traditional cues that I would have used in the past, then what does that look like? And can you do it? Absolutely, you can do it, but it's a little different. So we just have to think about it differently. But I will say the advantage is that it is for those students and kiddos where the access that they have to both hardware and Wi-Fi is a little more challenging, then this works in their favor. Okay. It doesn't mean that they have to be and meet you at a certain time. It means that when they can get to a better Wi-Fi connection, when they've got access to better technology, then they can do and see what they need to do and see. So it's less reliant on that really strong Wi-Fi, and just there's more flexibility around it. And the other advantage is particularly for those kiddos that require some differentiation. So, when you are in a class with them, you might say instructions once, maybe twice, but there are some kiddos that might need it three or four. Or you've shown an example to them and you've gone through it once, but they might need it two or three. And so, in fact, if you give them the content in an asynchronous way, they can actually go back and look at it again. They can review it again. They can take their time as they need to process it, as opposed to your time. So despite the fact that we have to think about it differently, there really are some really wonderful advantages. And so the tool that I'm going to walk you through to create an asynchronous lesson is called Screencastify. It is a Chrome extension, and so when you're in the Chrome browser, it is an application that runs over top of your browser. You'll see it right here showing up, and you'll notice there's also a little record button happening because I'm using this particular tool to do this screencast, um, and it works really quite well. And so if you do not have this little orange arrow beside your Omnibox, your URL bar, then you'll want to go get it from the Chrome store. Now, the easiest way is simply Screencastify extension in Chrome, and then you'll find that it pops up as one of the top results. And so I'm going to simply click on it. And now I have this already added to my Chrome browser. If you do not have it added, we'll see add to Chrome in the place of this button. But as I have it, I see remove from Chrome. Okay. If you don't have it, you just click on that button and it will start the installation process to your browser. You'll notice that there will probably be a tab that opens up and it'll take you through a couple of different screens, in part to get your account, your G Suite account set up with Screencastify and connect it to you. And in part also just to kind of walk you through some other additional microphone camera setup tools. But when you're done and you can close that tab, if you were to click on this again, and then you will start to see some of the options available to you. And because I'm actually using this tool, it's a little bit tricky to walk you through it. So I've taken some screenshots so that you can see what it looks like. So if I were to click on this button when I'm not using it, you would see that this little window pops up underneath. And in this window, you have a couple of choices. One, you can record, do a screen recording of just your browser. So like literally just this like your Chrome browser tab. You can do it of your entire desktop. So that means that you can kind of flip between applications, or just the webcam. I find that the browser tab is a little bit limiting, and so I very rarely use this one. And I will use either the desktop or the webcam, but really, truly, I use desktop most often. Okay, the desktop is for when you want to provide, you want receivers, people who that are going to watch your video, for when they need to see something that is on your screen, much like you were to project it onto like in off of a projector, but then they can also see and hear you at the same time. Okay, so if you were to click this option, you would just make sure your microphone is on. It's got the integrated mic, the integrated webcam, and I actually embed the webcam, and so that's what this is. This little box, you can see me. And it's not that you need to see my face or you need to see my mouth moving or, let's be honest, my hand gestures, because they just do that. But the importance is that it is another way for your students to connect with you. They still see you. They don't just hear you, they see you. And seeing you is really comforting. And there is something about that just enhances the relationship that you have with your kiddos. And so, despite the fact that we rarely like to see ourselves, we don't like to hear ourselves, it is important that they see you. So, I would just challenge you to include that webcam in there because it really does enhance that connection, with your students. And that's important, especially when it's at a distance. Okay. And so from there, you would just click record. There's kind of a countdown, and as soon as it starts recording, first of all, you'll see a light like I do. There's just a light at the top showing that your webcam is on. And there's a little kind of box at the bottom that would suggest that your screen is being recorded. Okay. The other alternative is that you use the webcam only. And so the webcam only would literally just be this. Um, and so you would use just the webcam less if you were trying to walk them through a lesson. You're not trying to show them anything. You're not trying to walk them through notes or an assignment or anything like that. But more if you just need to provide a message to them. So it could be it could be announcements. It could be, here's what we're going to take a look at this week, you guys. It could be, just a welcome back. How are you? This is what happened to me on this weekend. So it is really more just to kind of for that personal connection, less from an instructional standpoint, because otherwise they're relying solely on what they hear. And we really want, anytime we're providing instructions, we want to provide it in as many modes as possible. So sound, sight, images, text, and right now, if it was just the webcam, you'd just hear me. But nonetheless, This is an option too. Make sure your microphone is on, your camera is from your computer, and then just press record. Easy peasy. When you're recording or when you're getting kind of close to being done, then you would go back up and you would click on your Screencastify again, and this little eye up window will pop up, and from there you stop. Okay. Now, because I'm using the tool, it's a little tricky to walk you through what it would look like if I were to press stop. So again, I've taken a snapshot just so that you can see it. Okay. When you press stop, another tab will open across the top, and you will see that the video is on kind of the left side of the screen, and it'll start, it can start playing for you. You'll notice there are scissors at the front and the back, and so you can trim it if you need to. There is an editor, but to be truthful, I have used it rarely because really, I just have used it very minimally. Um, it's a matter of keeping it simple. You will notice that the title is a little bit different, and so it's kind of like a Google Doc. You go in and just change it. You can change it to what you want. And then there's additional options. What Screencastify does is it automatically saves this video in your Google Drive. Okay? So if you were to, you will notice that when you install it, if you were go to My Drive, you would find that there would be a folder created called Screencastify, and then all your videos will be files inside that folder. But the other option is instead of going in to find it, you can always just click on copy shareable link, and then that would be the link to the video. Okay. So that being said, once I've got my video and it is in my Google Drive, then there's lots of things I can do with it, depending on what the purpose is. Once the video is there, I can get it onto a Google site. I can pull it into Google Slides. I can even get it onto Google Classroom. Now, something to note is that the rendering process, in other words, the time that it takes um, to take the recording that was done and then turn it into kind of that final video file, it does take a little bit of time. And the longer that your screencast is, the longer it takes for it to render and be a final file that you can use. If you were to try and open it before that rendering is done, you would likely see a screen like, let me see if I can find one for you. Screencastify. You might see that it looks something like, I don't think this one is done, like this. Okay, so we're still processing this video. Please check back later. So that doesn't mean you've done it wrong. It doesn't mean that there's something that there's an error. It just means it's taking time. And so just it really check back in an hour. Okay, sometimes it does take an hour, a couple of hours, depending on the length of your screencast, but it does work and it will get there. But like I said, it just takes a little bit of time. Okay. Once you are done, like I said, there's lots of things you can do with that video. I will show you in another screencast some options around how to structure a lesson, but it could be as simple as if you were creating just a really quick, how's it going, you guys? Here are announcements for the week. You can go into Google Classroom, click create. I might say, here are our weekly announcements. I'm going to go add. Now I can either click here and paste the link. Oh, right, it was a screenshot. That won't work. Or I can go into Google Drive. I can go into Google Drive and then I can grab it here. And again, I can see that it's still rendering because I don't actually see an image, but this is one that I made earlier and I do see that it is in fact complete, so I could grab it. So even if I were to grab it, I can click add. It'll be there, but it just won't be processed yet. So just hold off. You may want to hold off on posting it to your students or providing the video to your students, because again, there might just be some confusion from them, like, I can't see it. What's going on? So just hold off, give it an hour, give it some time, and you will find that it'll be ready to go shortly. Okay. So What we've talked about real briefly here is that when we're talking digital learning, there are a number of strategies, a number of applications, but one of the most effective strategies to deliver online learning is to use an asynchronous format. So you're not expecting to meet with your students in the traditional way, but you are giving them flexibility. And it's harder. Certainly, we have to pay attention to different things, but you will find that the students are less frustrated and you get less frustrated. And so, just some things to keep in mind, okay? Um, Consider that less is more, and I'll talk about this in another screencast, but less content, less time. Try and keep your videos, try and keep your lessons to anywhere between, you know, 4 and 10 minute snippets. And I'm clearly violating that on this one, and I'm sorry. But give really clear instructions, and just really be understanding around your kiddos. Be as personable and be you. Really, it doesn't need to be formal and perfected. They just want to see you. They want to connect with you. They want to learn from you. And so the more that you're able to do that, and connect with them, the the more successful your online learning um, will be for both you and for your kiddos. As always, I am always available for questions. Feel free to ask. And this has been another just chance for us to learn together. In the meantime,